Hi everyone. Before I get going, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone at R-HTA. It's been really great to see so many friendly faces and interesting presentations and discussions. I'm recording this on PowerPoint, so hopefully there won't be any hiccups as we go through. Anyway, here we go. My name's Tom. I'm a director at Horizon Health Economics, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're doing in the R and R-Shiny space. In particular, I'm going to talk through the development of an early economic modeling platform for oncology indications. Before I get going, I just want to say a big thank you to Alex and Ollie for helping me develop the platform and for helping me put together these slides today. What we're going to do, I'm going to talk through a bit of background and motivation behind the project. In particular, I want to talk a little bit about where we are with respect to medicine development in oncology. And I also want to talk a little bit about where we see health economic modeling going in the next few years, particularly in the context of script-based and code-based modeling applications. Then I'll talk about the platform itself. I'll talk through the design, the methods behind it, and what it can and can't do before providing a live demonstration. And then we'll summarize a couple of things at the end. In particular, I'd like to talk a little bit about how we improve adoption of R-based modeling applications over the next year or two. Where are we in terms of medicine development in oncology? So there's a lot going on at the moment. I think, in particular, the easy one to call out, artificial intelligence, the buzzword. At the moment, obviously, it all started several years ago with AlphaFold, but we're seeing a lot of applications, a lot of change coming in the AI space that really is helping the development of medicines and expediting the development of those medicines. The next 5 years, 10 years are going to be super, super interesting with a lot of interesting breakthroughs coming through. JCA, I know this is a bit of a bugbear and causing a few problems for everyone at the moment. What it's meaning at the moment is there is just a greater need for payer evidence generation. Hopefully that need will go away over time, but at the moment, increasing the burden on model development and modeling applications. FDA reforms, trial efficiency. There's a lot going on in that space, particularly actually just over the last 6 months. We've seen some really big changes, particularly at the FDA, where now we only need one pivotal trial to achieve approval rather than the previous two. We're seeing a lot more allocations of breakthrough therapy designation. We're seeing the expanded use of surrogate endpoints in trials, single-arm trials. We're seeing Bayesian frameworks used for trial design. All of this is essentially meaning we're moving through trials much quicker than we used to, and we're the time between trial evaluation and drug launch is becoming much shorter. And then finally, we have a lot more treatments coming through, many more novel modalities. Obviously, everyone's aware of all of the ADCs we have available at the moment. PDCs are starting to come through. We've got a lot of gene therapies, RNA therapies. There's a lot going on in the oncology space. And ultimately, what this means is that, for us anyway, as health economists, there's going to be a rapidly increasing need for health economic analyses and at earlier phases in the product lifecycle. So I'm going to talk now about a couple of specific challenges that motivated the development of the platform that we'll talk about in a minute. The first one being reproducible workflows. So, and just to read this out verbatim, essentially. So despite consistency in methodological approaches, workflows are routinely rebuilt within organizations by different teams. So I think this is particularly relevant to the oncology space, where we do have a relatively algorithmic approach to survival analysis, if we are to follow the NICE DSU guidelines, for example. And then we have a relatively simplistic framework that's often adopted for cost effectiveness modeling. So either a simple partition survival model or a simple Markov model approach. I am aware that we are moving away from those approaches in some indications. We're treatment sequencing models, just more comprehensive and more complex models in general, are starting to become the norm. But at the same time, I do think there is an argument to say those simple partition survival models, simple Markov models, particularly in the early space, are suited to the analytical needs of certain evaluations. And so what we wanted to do with the platform was really develop that workflow so that we could provide the indication specification, the survival analysis, the cost effectiveness analysis, all in one place. So it's a standardized workflow that can be repeated over and over again. It's QC'd. You don't need to redevelop different aspects of the model or the analytical workflow. I'll talk through the next two together. So collaboration and oversight, and then communication and education. So in general here, when we're building a model, we interact with a lot of different stakeholders with different levels of analytical understanding. And we often have to engage with those different stakeholders at different points in the development process. So some stakeholders we will engage with to elicit input information, to validate a methodology or validate a particular result or input. Some stakeholders will engage with simply to present results and present conclusions. But what we end up with in this situation is scenarios where we can be sharing lots of files. We can be asking others to adapt the model, input into the model. So it's very easy to introduce analytical inconsistency. We can have version control issues. And also we're often engaging with those different groups outside of the workflow environment itself. So we'll be presenting that information in a slide deck or a Word report or some other application. And so what we wanted to do here was to try and bring all of that together in one place. So to provide an environment where users can actively share parts of the model with other users. They can feed in and then changes can be made in a centralized hub. What we also wanted to do with this was to introduce an educational element so that if, for example, we wanted to introduce stakeholders who are less familiar with a health economic modeling analysis, they can walk through the workflow and they can be educated as they go as to the decisions that have been made and what needs to be thought about in particular areas of the model. For example, the survival analysis sections, how do we pick a survival curve? What should we be thinking about? The cost effectiveness results, how do we interpret an ISA? How do we interpret net monetary benefit, for example? That's what we wanted to achieve. So we've put this slide together just to try and demonstrate how the platform that we've developed is a little bit different to other modeling development approaches. So we've got a number of different approaches to developing cost effectiveness models here. So we've got de novo model builds, which I think speak for themselves. And then we've got two types of model builders, so general purpose algorithmic model builders. So here we're thinking about things like triage, HeSim, HeMod. They provide a significant degree of flexibility when building particular modeling types. So maybe they're focused to Markov models or decision trees, or they have a specific area of focus, but they're designed to be treatment and disease agnostic. Similarly for the AI-enabled model builders, designed to be agnostic, and they each have a couple of limitations. And so what we're trying to do a bit differently is target groups of indications or treatments with similar structural, analytical, and evidence requirements, and then build a modeling platform targeted to those specific needs. And so we're using this as a bit of a test case because oncology felt like the obvious test bed for such a platform. We have that, like I said in the previous slide, we have that algorithmic approach to survival analysis. We have a relatively simple modeling approach that's adopted in a lot of different oncology indications. And so it felt like a natural test case for this kind of integrated modeling platform development. And I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. Okay, just to reiterate what I said on the last slide about integrated modeling platforms. So these are health economic models that are specifically designed to span multiple indications and interventions. In particular, indications and interventions that have similar structural and analytical requirements. And hopefully that will offer an efficient alternative to conventional single application modeling practices. Um, we think some of the key benefits of this kind of approach are um, its systematic nature and its reproducibility. So we can embed best practices within the platform and hopefully accelerate the movement from decision problem specification all the way through to results, whilst ensuring all of that workflow is reproducible. It's deterministic in nature. We don't get a different result every time we run the analysis or we develop a analytical workflow. We're confident in the results coming through. It's scalable. So, with the advent of different R tools, different AI tools, we can build those into the model. We can scale the model up, down as needed in the environment that we've chosen. And I think really importantly, we're trying to make it accessible. So 2 points on this. I think firstly, there's a lot of talk at the moment from within industry, within academia, within consultancy, about moving away from Excel to R in the development of models. But there's often a big hesitation from those that are not involved in the analytical workflow. And that's because R isn't as transparent. Or maybe transparency is not the right word here. It's not as accessible to those that don't have an understanding of coding environments or analytical workflows. And so I do think here we as health economists, modelers, analysts, coders do have a responsibility to try and make that coding environment as accessible as possible. That's why we've chosen to layer on what we think is quite a comprehensive R-Shiny interface over the model itself. I think then the second point here is about education, because I think even with a nice interface around these models, and I think this point is relevant to all models, whether it's built in Excel, VBA, R, Python, etc., is can we create an environment that also provides education to users, so they can walk through the workflow and understand what the analysis is doing, what the results are telling you, and understand that so that they can then make informed decisions, whether that be informed decisions around populating the model, validating the model, or using the conclusions that the model has generated. I do think that's very important. Okay, now just to talk through the design of the platform itself. The platform is built in a modular way using our Shiny modules. And we start initially with indication specification, so defining the indication and the relevant treatments. We move on to survival analysis, where we've got the option for aggregate level data analysis or individual patient level data analysis. So for aggregate analysis, we can look at digitized Kaplan-Meier curves, landmark survival analysis, user-defined parametric models, and direct survival curve uploads. For the individual patient level data analysis, we can upload IPD, evaluate Kaplan-Meiers, and look at proportional hazards models, parametric models, semi-parametric models, splines, mixed cure models, etc., all based on the NICE DSU guidelines. And then we have our economic modeling section using our partition survival model and reporting all of the usual health economic modeling outputs. And then we combine all of that information in an automated reporting facility that is designed to output either a slide deck or a PDF style report using Markdown. So now I'm going to switch over and just give a quick walkthrough of the platform itself. So just bear with me a second while I switch over. Okay, here we go with the demonstration. So When users open the application, they're presented with a login page. Each user has their own login information, and the platform is secure. The idea is that the platform would be hosted on an organization's internal server system, so that storage of analyses, user profiles is all centralized, and users can start sharing analyses between user profiles. Again, as I mentioned before, the idea here is that users can share different analysis profiles, either under read-only or with editable rights, to enable that kind of collaborative approach. When users first log into the platform, they're presented with a couple of simple menus defining whether they want to pursue a new analysis, load an existing analysis, or undertake some of that analysis profile management that I've just mentioned. So for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to load just a pre-populated example cost-effectiveness analysis. Please be aware that this profile is based on hypothetical data, so please don't read into any results you see within this analysis. Once loaded, users will be presented with a couple of core menus walking you through different modules within the platform. So as I mentioned before, we've got a platform overview section, we've got an indication specification section, a survival analysis section, a cost effectiveness analysis section, and then the automated reporting section. What we've tried to do as well throughout the platform is to try and guide users through different sections of the analysis. So you'll see at the bottom here that there's an indicator providing some information about the next section to review. So in this particular analysis, the next section that the user might want to review is the scenario analysis in the results section. We've also got a couple of menus at the top here. So this first one, if we click on this, it provides an overview of all of the modules available within the platform and their completion status. So we can see here that in the indication specification section, the disease and treatment specification, the patient profile sections are complete. If we scroll down and we have a look at the cost effectiveness analysis section, we can see that we're still awaiting user input for the results, the scenario analysis section. Similarly, if we click on this menu, we have an overview of the survival data that's available to us. So we can see that for drug X plus chemotherapy and for chemotherapy alone, we've got IPD data uploaded, we've fit parametric model splines, we've got landmark analysis and Kaplan-Meier analysis available in the aggregate data section. So just to now give you a quick demonstration of the survival analysis section. So if we click through to the survival analysis section, the first time that users move through to this section, they would automatically be presented with this menu. This menu is designed to ask users what data they have available to them. So you can see here that we've ticked individual patient level data, digitized Kaplan-Meier curves, landmark survival points, and hazard ratios. Based on that selection, subsequently, different menu options become available or are ruled out based on that selection to make population of survival data a little bit easier. So I'll flick through to the individual patient level data section. It's quite a nice demonstration of what things look like in the model. So throughout the platform, input, specification, interaction with the model follows a similar process. We have buttons, drop-down menus, free text inputs, sometimes selection of numbers, numeric inputs, etc. For all inputs, we've provided a little eye icon. You click on that, it'll highlight the particular input, and then it'll provide some information on what those inputs or buttons are doing in the tab at the bottom of the screen. And then we've broken down each of the sections into smaller subsections. So in this particular section, we're looking at uploading individual patient level data. We can select the treatment we want to upload data for. And you can see here that for drug X plus chemotherapy, we've uploaded PFS data and OS data already. That's based on digitized pseudo IPD. And if we scroll a bit further down, we've got a presentation of that IPD in a Kaplan-Meier format. We use Plotly throughout the platform to show graphical output and input. It provides a summary. It allows users to interact with the plots as well, so we can identify particular areas, zoom in, We can also download these plots directly from the screen. What we've also tried to do throughout is provide these little education symbols. So by clicking on those, the user is presented with a pane of information describing what they might want to be considering at this particular time point in the analysis or input specification. So here we're just providing a bit of advice around QCing the Kaplan-Meier data, the IPD data, and we've provided a bit of an overview as to key survival terms, etc. We've also got the optionality to look at different forms of survival data. So, for example, we can look at the cumulative hazard here, log plots, cumulative events, and the log cumulative hazard, and a couple of display options there as well. In the table below, we then summarize the Kaplan-Meier data, so with median information and the proportional live at different time points, number of events, number of sensors, etc. And inputting this data then allows us to move forwards to our other more comprehensive survival analysis evaluation. So I'll quickly show the parametric survival analysis. It's a nice demonstration of what we have. So again, a similar format. We can select our treatment to evaluate, we can select our outcome to evaluate. Only the treatments and outcomes for which data has been uploaded will be available in this particular module. We scroll down and we can have a look at our parametric fits. So we have the full range of parametric fits suggested by NICE. And again, we use Plotly. We can summarize some of that key information just by hovering over the plot. And again, have some options for different survival profiles. So maybe we want to look at the log plot. We can select that and have a look. And it's maybe a bit small, so we just want to zoom in on a particular section and have a closer look. And maybe we also want to remove some of the curves that we know don't offer a particularly good fit. So if we remove exponential, log normal, there we can see some of those other curves a bit more clearly. And again, we summarize the data. Then we provide an overview of the survival dates, a survival summary, so looking at mean survival and proportion surviving at different time points. And then we have an overview of the parametric fit. So we describe the parameters associated with each fit, the hazard profile, whether it's constant, increasing, decreasing, if it's got a unimodal hazard, where it peaks, where it troughs, etc. We report AIC, BIC, log likelihood, and whether the parametric model evaluates outside of the 95% confidence interval for the Kaplan-Meier curve. And then we have an option to include those particular survival analysis profiles within the cost effectiveness analysis. Okay, so I will just very quickly now just jump to the cost effectiveness analysis section just to give you an idea of what we're considering. So first of all, you'll see that we have a large number of menus on the left-hand side. We populate our general settings, survival is where we pick the survival curves that we've taken through to the cost effectiveness analysis, specify treatment costs, disease management costs, utilities, adverse events, etc. And then we can move to our cost effectiveness analysis section. So very briefly, for our base case analysis results, we're just looking at a top line overview initially, looking at the incremental costs, qualities, net monetary benefit, ISA, and cost effectiveness conclusions, and at what drug price discount is required to achieve cost effectiveness for drug X plus chemotherapy versus these particular comparators. And then we've got a cost effectiveness plane to the right. Then further down this section, we have cost effectiveness results in tabular format, a breakdown of those results, so looking at individual cost components and quality components, some graphical displays of that same information, a section on the economically justifiable price or the discount required to achieve cost effectiveness for different components, and then an overview of clinical outcomes and a similar graphical summary. So I'll pause there on the demo and I'll jump back into the slides now, but just a reminder, we're going to be releasing a version of the platform online on our own servers. We're really interested in people starting to use it, starting to QC it, starting to feed back to us a little bit about what's working, what's not working, how can we improve user interaction, etc. So if you are interested, our contact details are available at the end of the slide show, please do get in touch. Thanks. Okay, hopefully everyone found the walkthrough useful, found it interesting, and hopefully it's a nice demonstration of what R and R-Shiny can do. Just a quick few closing remarks from me now. First of all, just to emphasize that the approach that we've termed integrated modeling platforms, we think it's strongest when decision problems, evidence structures, workflows, outputs are relatively consistent across interventions or indications. Obviously, we've demonstrated the development of a platform solution for oncology today, but we do think this kind of approach could be taken forward in a number of other disease areas, particularly those of a homogeneous nature. And so, if anyone does have any thoughts around disease areas in which we could pursue this kind of approach, or would like to discuss any of these thoughts further, we'd be really interested in hearing from you. Please do get in touch. Our contact details are on the next slide. And then maybe I'll just end on one particular learning which has come up over and over again, and I think is maybe particularly relevant to the R-HTA group. Obviously, within this group at R-HTA, we're trying to build applications and tools that improve the efficiency, robustness, accessibility of health economic analysis. In particular, we're trying to improve the use of R within the health economic space. One of the things we've heard time and time again throughout the development of this platform and some of our other tools has been accessibility and usability. Every time we've taken this to a different group to discuss, to trial, to work with, that's been a key discussion point. How do we, improve accessibility and usability so that it moves beyond just the health economists and the analysts using the tool, but it moves beyond them to the wider audience, the people that are still interacting with the outcomes of our health economic analyses, or that are informing the inputs going into our health economic analyses. So I think I'd just like to end on that and emphasize that accessibility and usability, I think we really want to be focusing on that in the next couple of years, particularly with the advent of all of the AI tools, which will hopefully make our lives a bit easier when putting together nice interfaces and approaches to providing that accessibility and usability. And now, just to say thank you to everyone for listening today. I hope everyone had a great time at R-HTA. I definitely did. I hope to see you again in the near future. Thank you.